And so what we wanted to talk to you guys about today is something that's core to what we do around relationships, this idea that we call connectivity. It's how do you take something that we all understand intuitively around personal value, something that we understand qualitatively around how people feel, and translate that to a broader business opportunity. It's an idea that we internally look at as sort of a unified relationship theory of everything as it applies to business performance.
So, how many of you have heard about Einstein's relativity theory? Cool people, I'm impressed. But you have, you know that this is the closest the scientific world has gotten to a single theory, single explanation of all physical phenomena. But do we have that in the social world? What explains all the idiosyncratic, self-destructive, artistic, humane and inhumane ways that we all behave? We think there is, and for lack of a better word, we call that relationship theory of everything, connectivity. The truth is that we are hardwired from birth to connect. Right next to our need for food and for sex is also the need to connect. That's why breakup hurts, that's why being left out hurts. It's that embedded into our nature. And that's also shown in fMRI scans, where they prove that the way we experience physical pain is neurologically the same as the way we experience social pain. And to quote renowned social scientist Matthew Lieberman's book, Social, by activating the same neural circuitry that causes us to feel physical pain, our experience of social pain also ensures the survival of our children by keeping them close to their parents. The mutual link between social and physical pain ensures that staying socially connected will be a lifelong need. So connection is very important, and we know that to be true in our personal and social lives, where the connection and the relationships to our family, our friends, our mentors are not just integral for our lives and irreplaceable, but they're also key to our happiness. Famous psychiatrist and sociologist Estelle Perel says that the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. But we somehow forget about all this and our key behavior and our key need to connect when we move to the business world. In the business world, we became different creatures, and we're talking about conflict and competition. And relationships become pushed to the periphery. Even though we know that consumers can form meaningful relationships to brands, much like we form relationships with other people. And they're long-lasting. Just to give you a few examples, and there are many examples, this consumer from IKEA says, "I absolutely love IKEA. When I was little, I loved going there because my mom would drop me off at the play area, and now I do the same with my kid." So it's continual. We do it with our kids the same way we were taught as kids. So why isn't relationship then in the center of our business strategy?
It's almost like if you understand what Maria is saying, it's we know that relationships are core to who we are and how we think. We know that fundamentally is part of our survival, and we interact in a personal way that way. But business is more about competition. How do I beat this person? How do I gain market share? How do I get greater share of wallet is a natural orientation to doing business versus in this soft, fuzzy, personal way of doing business. And the reason for that is because things like engagement or lifetime value or sales or market share, share of wallet are measurable. We know how to adapt those. We know where we are. We know where to go. But when we talk about love and relationships and things that are very human, it's magical. Like, I don't know why this person is my best friend. I don't know why I love this person. I just do. And then so we struggle with that idea of how to make that useful, even though that's core to what we do. So And the key is, though, and this is something that we all know, I know personally, is that love is not a relationship. Love is a great emotion. It's a great feeling. You're in love with someone, it's fantastic. But I don't know about you guys. I've been in relationships where I've been in love, and it's been a bad relationship where it hasn't quite worked out. And that love is nice, but the relationship is what drives you. And relationships, really, if you break it down, are a combination of two things. What do you get from the relationship? What are those tangible things that you walk away from? And how does that make you feel about yourself? You know, when you're in a good relationship with your partner, you feel like, I feel more attractive, I feel more confident. If you're in a bad relationship, I feel very insecure, I don't know, they're always angry. You know, these things really drive whether a relationship works, which is beyond the idea of love. And one of the things that we want to talk about with this idea of connectivity is how do you measure that relationship? And that's different than measuring brand love. Brand love is, again, it's an emotion, you feel good, but what are you actually feeling? How do you actually feel, and what are you actually getting? And so you can make get and feel measurable. In a relationship term, it could be how often does that person make you smile? How good is your sex life? What type of companionship? Are you seeing each other enough? These are objective things that we go, like, I love this guy, bad in bed. Don't know, right? People feel that way. And if I don't get that, no matter how much I love them, that's a problem in the relationship. So you can look at what you get in a very specific way and measure that. And also, how does that make you feel about yourself? Am I more positive? Am I happier? Do I feel more attractive when I'm in that relationship? So using that allows us to understand where the relationship is, which again is different than a brand love or a brand equity.
And so the index of relationship distance between what I get and how I feel compared to the desired relationship is what connectivity is. That way, brands can measure very precisely, in much more understandable terms, where is the relationship with their customers, where do they want to be, how is that different from their competitors, and then adjust particular points in the relationship and have more actionable measures. Connectivity really comes from two words, kin, meaning family, and connection, meaning closeness. And it's the bridge between the world of the magical and the world of the measurable. And as we go through a few case studies, you will see what that means and what's the implication for business. We have done a 3-year and going longitudinal study in Japan with more than 85 brands. And this is just the top 60 brands in Japan. They're ranked, you can see the ranking, and you can see that Mercedes-Benz is the top #1. That does not mean that they're the best brand out there. That only means that they're the best brand in their category. Because Mercedes-Benz doesn't really compete with Prada or SK2. They compete with VW or Subaru and Honda. So it's important for them to understand where they are compared to their competitors.
Yeah, and the only other part I'll add about that is that it's, as a luxury brand, of course you'll probably have a better relationship. People are more emotionally invested. As a fast food brand or as a FMCG brand, that naturally should be different. So to Maria's point, it's about competing and growing relationship value versus your competitive set versus trying to be a different category of brand. And I think sometimes, you know, we as brands will go like, well, we should do what Nike's doing. You're not Nike. It's a different category. It has to make sense contextual against the category and the relationship that is natural against the category.
And so understanding where you stand can give you a more competitive advantage and actual actionable starting point.
Cool. So what we really like about this tool, again, it's not about brand love or brand equity or whatever. It's about saying if we understand the human nature and the fundamental need to connect, whether that's a normal human relationship or a parasocial relationship with a brand, if that's fundamental and as that relationship grows, how does that impact our business? And can we use that to actually match against the business? So over that three-year study that Maria's talked about, we looked at how growth in connectivity matches growth in revenue, growth in profit, growth in margin rate, et cetera, to say, well, does this seem to make a difference? Does having a better relationship with your customers and having a growing relationship with your customers then improve your probable business outcomes? And from what we found through that three-year studies, the answer is yes. So this is a correlation chart against profit. Obviously, a perfect correlation, I know, going into data stuff, sorry, bad habit. But a perfect correlation chart would be at this angle, a correlation of 100%. This is about a 40% correlation between growth in connectivity and growth in profit. You see a slightly stronger correlation when you look at actual margin over those 2 years in terms of what these businesses are actually then keeping as a percentage of their revenue. That margin rate growth is even stronger than absolute profit. And you also see a growth in stock value, presumably because as people are more engaged with the brand, that probably translates into what people are willing to invest in that brand. So you see that correlation at the same time. We have compared this to other brand loyalty scores such as NPS, and the correlation that you find when you think about the overall connectivity, the measurement of what someone believes they get and feel, you don't see the same positive correlations as compared to NPS. This is just a couple of quick specific examples against particular brands where Family Mart over that 2-year period grew their relationship, their connectivity score by 14%. 7-Eleven saw a 12% reduction in that connectivity score. Connectivity is not everything. There's obviously lots of business factors that decide how much money and profit you do make. But you see that Family Mart then outperforms 7-Eleven in the case of both profit and margin. And you see the same thing, completely different category between ANA and JAL, which are two Japanese airlines. You see there's a bigger gap in terms of the growth in connectivity. And again, there's also a bigger gap when you look at profit and margin. In this case, both businesses happen to lose margin, but the gap for ANA is significantly less. Oh, this is me? So, in conclusion, what we think is that as people, because we're hardwired to connect with those that are close to us, it's fundamentally a survival tool, and this drives how we interact. It's fundamental. It's why, as Maria said, we form friendships and clubs and teams and national identities, et cetera, and it drives a lot of our human social behaviors. It's also why we connect with brands in a parasocial way, why Apple or some other brand is the brand for me. I'm an Adidas guy. I don't like Puma or whatever it is. It's because we need to feel safe and have a trusted relationship. It's fundamental. It's not something we can control. But if we can manage those bonds and we can measure that, it gives us another tool to understand that personal human behavior and linking that to better business outcomes. That's what we got.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I was just, maybe I'm the only one who missed it, but how did you calculate this index?
So it's a survey. It's a self-reported data that we send the same for 85 and growing brands, where consumers, we basically ask key relationship questions. I won't get into detail of what we ask because that becomes proprietary, but it's self-reported data.
Yeah, but basically each year for the past 4 years, 5? 5 years, it's 10,000 people in Japan that we actually reach out to against a range of different brands. And we ask them 3 sets of questions. One that's more parasocial based, one that's more about how they feel, and the other one about specific value that they get. It's also classified, and we didn't go into it in this particular thing, around the dimensions that a consumer expects from a brand, around product relationship or brand relationship or personal value that they extract. And we use that then to compile an index that creates the actual connectivity score.
You sort of touched on my question, but if a brand has a bad connectivity score, what are some of the practical things that you would advise them to do?
Sure. So there's, within that, right, and the reason why we believe that this is an interesting approach is that it's about what I feel or get, et cetera. So there's dimensions underneath that the score is the overall outcome. Against those dimensions, we could say, well, compared to your competitor, this is what their customer feels or gets in this way versus you. So it gives you a target place to go after against those underlying dimensions. So for any individual brand, it's different, but we have the underlying dimensions that provide an actionable recommendation versus just the total outcome. Because the total outcome is interesting, but not actionable.
So do you have like baseline data per category that you would recommend the brand to aim for?
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually the value of this, because it gives you precise places to target.
Yes.
Here you go. Here we go.
That's right. Was there a qualitative component in your measurement tool? Because we're kind of like qualitative mindset here, and this is quant stuff, right?
Sure. So let me express it this way. And I feel like I told you about this last night.
No, we'd had a few GMTs, right?
Yeah, I feel like he's trying to set me
And
up.
anyway, memory gap is big in qualitative research,
I
right?
feel like we talked about this. No, but like, to be completely honest, and this is our thinking around it, what we look at is things like, how do you say, how someone feels or why they feel that way tends to be a very qualitative driven tool. As people look at behaviors or what you're likely to do, or do you like this product, sort of quantitatively. So what we've done and what connectivity is intended to do is take that small personal view, but then try to scale that. So the tool itself, if you ask me, lends itself from qualitative, but it's designed to have a broader business impact in that way.
We'll continue the conversation, okay? Without alcohol.
Yeah.
Just a very short one. Wouldn't it be possible to add on some, like say, interviews to really understand why they feel or connect that way? Like, I don't know the categories below. It's not sex, obviously.
Yep.
So
No.
what is it, and wouldn't it help to really understand how the brands could behave or what they should change to connect even better?
Definitely, I think what this can give you is a diagnosis of where is the brand currently in their relationship, where do they want to be, how are their competitors, where are they doing better, and then to further understand what particularly is driving that. Absolutely, there can be either focus group or an interview, observational studies to make it more precise and deeper.
So like specifically when we used this, for example, to help design a program for Shiwamura in Japan, across Asia Pacific. We started with connectivity because then it allows us to say against your competitors, whether that's Mac or another brand, what are some of your deficiencies? We did do, as part of that development of that program, then one-to-one discussions with some of their customers that then fed into that. You know, so to Maria's point, we see this as a baseline that says, here's what I need to approach, but then talking to a consumer actually gives us better lenses, one, to validate it, but then two, let's say, for example, the reason I am lagging or a brand is lagging is because I don't feel as happy as my competitor makes you. Well, we still need to know what makes you feel happy. So we've got a target point to then build off of, but then some of those one-to-one discussions to say, what does that mean within this brand context? So I do think they absolutely go together, especially as you build solutions.
I think we need to stop there. Next
please, I'm really curious what she has to say, please. Just one more, and then please.
Thank Thank you. I will be very quick. So I guess I didn't hear that. What's the sample size each year you made the survey, and did you return to the same respondents? As you mentioned, it's longitudinal. So did you track the change in decision or feeling or so on? And yeah, what was the size and how did it reduced each time?
You were curious.
No, so I'm curious. So yeah, it's about 10,000 people total. And then we are able then to track the same consumer over multiple years. It doesn't always go to exactly the same 10,000, and we do want variety in that, so long as it's representative of the base. But we have that customer uniquely tagged, so we then do look at change by individual over time.
Right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Kari and Maria.
Thank you.